I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have to talk to Tracy and find out where your balloon is.
Good morning. Welcome to the regular Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Welcome to all of those that are here in public and also those who might be listening and live streaming our meeting this morning. To begin with, is there any public input on the approved agenda?
I would ask that we move our public hearing to the front of the agenda.
Okay, a request by Commissioner Landine to move the public information to the beginning of the meeting.
I meant that the public hearing, it's item
Public
3
hearing.
on our agenda.
Okay, all right. Any other items, differences? Okay. If not, is there a motion by this committee? Was that your motion?
I'd move to approve with that
Is there a
change.
second?
Second.
Okay. All those, any discussion, further discussion? Not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. And now, is there any public input to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
If not, will I have a motion by Landine, second by Schmidt to approve the consent agenda items. Any other discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. All right. That being said, we will begin our meeting then with, again, opportunity for public comment.
I think we should move
No.
then to item 3 on regular
Item
business.
3 will be the first one.
Oh, item 3 will be the first one. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, let's see. Who has item number 3?
That'd be me.
That is Alicia. Okay, go ahead, Alicia.
A public hearing is being held as advertised to consider an application for a temporary on-sale liquor license to operate outside the municipality for David Dershon, 57015 Bar LLC, Chancellor Bar, for a special event to occur on September 14th, 2024, located at Prosper Country Warehouse and Event Hall, 46620 278th Street, Lenox, South Dakota, 57039, Track 3A of Popenga's Addition in the southwest quarter of Section 28, Township 99 North, Range 51, west of the 5th Principal Meridian, Lincoln County, South Dakota.
Is the applicant here? Not. Okay. All right. I guess that being said, is there any people here that want to support the applicant? Any opponent here at this time? Okay. Is there anyone here who wants to speak against the applicant in this application? No proponents, no opponents? Okay, that being said, I guess I'm looking for any other public input on this matter? Not, I'll entertain a motion then.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Landine, second by Aaron's. Any discussion? Not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins.
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes, motion carried. All right, now, regular business. Item number 1. Okay, I guess this is, Alicia, this is a tabled item, so I guess the first thing we need to do is,
I would move to remove it from the table.
I'll
Yep.
second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public input on this matter? All right, if not, any discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins.
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes, okay, we've removed it at this particular time. Commissioner Schmidt, do you have something that you'd like to
Yes.
share?
I don't know if how we're going to actually proceed, but I just want to give a little background. As you know, that Evan and Nadine Rosma owed the county some $10,700 and some odd dollars for various fees that the county had paid for them. So in order to satisfy that lien, we talked a lot about forgiveness, and we went around the horse around a long time. So in order to more or less satisfy everybody and allow them to purchase their first house, their very first house, which may not mate to some, but I think owning your own home is a big deal in your life. We worked out the following situation, that there will be a promissory note that they will sign, and they will pay $50 a month, interest-free, to the county. The remaining amount of money will be placed on a second lien on the home that they are buying, so that they can, like putting that in the attic, it just sits there. And upon the sale of the house, or upon the demise of them and the ultimate sale of the house, the county will be reimbursed that said amount of money, which would be $5,700 and some odd dollars. Thank you. And cents, probably 27 cents. I want to be, got to be exact, you know. Anyway, this was a way in which, and I'll just use the word I-word, when I had this Sioux Empire Housing Partnership, we use this kind of methodology a lot of times to help people get into their first home. So in my mind, we now have Evan, and they are able to buy a home, live in their first home, pay $50 a month to the county, make their payments, regular mortgage payments, and get on with life. And at the same time, the county will be fully reimbursed over a period of time. So that's kind of everybody was in agreement. I've talked to both of Evan and Nadine. I talked with their realtor, Mr. Brick, and I talked with the Stewart Title Company. And what we have to do is, and I've talked with our state's attorney, and we write all this up, and so we can put this chapter to bed and say that we have helped a couple of people get on with their life. So I don't know right now, Mr. Chair, and I'll ask Drew, what procedure do we have? Do we need a motion to approve the promissory note, or do we need a motion to approve the entire proposal?
That'd be two separate motions, one to approve the signing of the promissory note, and then another one to compromise the lien upon signing of the promissory note of the applicant.
I will so move on the promissory note.
So with the promissory note, can you put in there that if they go 2 months delinquent, then that can be escalated? Because that was the other blank that was in the promissory note. We need
Okay.
to know
2 months?
2 months.
Okay.
And so I'm just for clarification, so the motion is a conditional approval of the release of lien conditioned on the second mortgage, or the lien, mortgage lien, and the promissory note. So those things would have to be signed and executed prior to the actual release of the lien. That, I'd second that if that's the motion.
That's the motion.
Okay. Is there any public input on this matter? Okay, if not, we have a motion and a second. A motion by Schmidt, a second by Landine.
Mr. Chairman, just to ask a clarifying question. What are the dollar amounts again?
$5,000 for the promissory note, $5,735.17 for the second mortgage.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I commend Commissioner Schmidt for working diligently in his experience with the Housing Authority to come up with a mechanism to make the county whole, but yet get this family into a home. I hope that you're still here to help the next person that has a similar, I don't know that another commissioner would have, without your experience, would have been able to pull this together, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other commissioners have a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think this is an example of being able to show some compassion and still look out for the taxpayers. So, and I think that's what folks in South Dakota are looking for us to help with. So, I'm glad we were able to find a way forward in this instance. Probably would have been a little more generous than what I would have gave, but I'm not going to quibble around the edges about it. It seems like a good compromise.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Poppins?
Yes?
Landine?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Gibbon?
Yes, motion carries.
We need a second motion now, Drew, to,
Authorize the,
That's my understanding, we need a second motion, correct?
authorize the compromise on execution of the promissory note.
I would so move on that as well.
And I'll second.
Okay, Schmidt and Landine, a motion and a second. Does everyone, any public input on that motion? If not, any discussion? Then call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Poppins?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Gibbon?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on then to item, let's see, number 2, our auditor, is that correct? Presentation for property and liability coverage.
Yep, I've got Lynn Brin here and Susan Kipke from SDPAA and Zach Jensen from Jensen Insurance to do the presentation for the liability coverage. We're not asking for action today. We're going to just give you the information and come back on the 24th with the approval if you so choose to.
I notice it's a state board discussion.
Yep.
So, go ahead if there's, name and address, please.
Good morning, Zach Jensen from Beersford with the Jensen Agency. And Mark and myself, along with the EMC, have had the privilege to provide the insurance coverage for the county for the last 44 years. I want to give a little bit of an update as to what the insurance industry and also EMC, Employers Mutual. Over the last probably 3-4 years, the insurance industry has faced some challenges coming off of COVID with auto and supply and demand, labor costs and such. And then along in '22 with the derecho and building costs, labor costs, supply and demand and such, the insurance industry has faced some challenges. So as of probably the last 3, 4, 5 months, we've been working with Employers Mutual, EMC, and seeing what the forecast might bring, kind of some unstable times. We don't have an EMC proposal put together yet, but with the forecast and the unsettled times, I've been working with Sherry and also with Lynn over the last few months, putting together maybe some alternative options. We want to make sure that we want to provide something that's best for Lincoln County and the Lincoln County residents. So with that in mind, I don't have an EMC proposal yet. I'm hopeful that we're going to have something put together. However, I'm not very optimistic that it's going to be so attractive, just due to the unsettled times. So with that in mind, brings us to where we are today, and I'd like to introduce Lynn.
What is
Lions.
different about this year than maybe other years? You said unsettled times. What is different?
Well, a lot of terms and conditions that we've experienced, the insurance companies are basically, they come down from reinsurance. And so the terms with the deductible, increased deductibles, per building deductibles, percentage deductibles, there's a lot more skin in the game on behalf of the insured. And whether it be single-family homes, commercial buildings, and along with that is the auto. our auto experience in the last few years has not been the best. So along with those property challenges and the auto experience that we've seen, makes it a little more difficult. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Lynn Bren, and I live in Harrisburg, South Dakota, so proud Lincoln County resident. So I am the Executive Director of the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance, so I'll give you a little bit about my background. So I've lived in Lincoln County since 1999 when my husband and I moved back here from Iowa. We originally grew up by Watertown, though, so we're South Dakota natives. We decided that when we were ready to start a family, we didn't want to do that in Des Moines, Iowa, so we moved to the great state of South Dakota. I actually began working with the pool back in 2001. I was a claims adjuster for Claims Associates, which is our claims vendor, and then in 2017 came over to the administrative side of the pool. So a little bit about a pool because it's a little different than what you would normally see. So you guys have in your packet, I sent this along to Sherry. I'm not going to go through all of this. This is for your information primarily. So a pool is different than commercial insurance. The biggest difference is the pool is not a for-profit entity. It is basically what we do. We have an actuarial study done every year that tells us how much money to collect to pay and administer claims. We take that money, we use it to purchase reinsurance, which helps us then fulfill those obligations and to make sure that you guys have a healthy, stable option for your property and liability coverages. So pools were formed back in 1987 in response to a hardening insurance market, and that is what Zach had referred to. So what happens is in the commercial world, they are for-profit entities, and that's fine. That's absolutely appropriate for what they're intended to do. A lot of their profits are made based on the economy and on the marketplace. Well, as you all know, the market kind of took a hit. So now they had to turn to their underwriting mechanisms for making sure that they remained profitable so that they could answer to their stakeholders, which are commercial people, private citizens, and stuff like that. The pool answers to their stakeholders, which is their members. It's the people that we cover. We are able to use our forecasting. We take a look at historical models, and our rates are based on the pool's history. So our goal is not to have all of these dips and dives and curves and waves. We're going to give you some healthy, stable rates. You're not going to see a lot of changes. A lot of changes actually that our members actually anticipate and see are due to their own internal changes in budgets and things like that. So most of what you are interested in looking at is going to be your updated quote packet. But before we get to that, I do just want to talk to you a little bit about agents. So not every member in our risk-sharing pool has an agent, but those that do usually have agents that are really committed to making sure that their insureds are taken care of. And I have really seen that in Zach and the Jensen Agency. We are excited to be able to partner with them if that is the desire of the commission. Zach has done a fantastic job of getting us the information we need. We worked with Sherry a lot too. So just a huge shout out to those folks because you really do have some committed servants. And so while we thank you and appreciate all you guys do for the county, also thank them for the time and effort that they put into all of this. So there's an updated packet. It's Commissioner Packet LB, I think.
Yep, I'm gonna make it unconfidential right now.
Okay, so that is really the information that you're gonna wanna look at. The updated part comes because I have fat thumbs and didn't put a 1 in, so your county highway shop in our property proposal schedule was only being covered for $946,000, and it's a $9.1 million building. So Zach helped me get that number corrected. So that did change some of the end of the term numbers and stuff like that. At the end of the day, coverage is coverage. We strive to make sure that we've got the broadest coverage available. We'll talk first about liability coverages. Liability, we give you a per occurrence limit. Your per occurrence limit is your limit. We don't do an underlying limit with whatever the coverage line is and then an umbrella. You are quoted at $6 million per occurrence. We don't have an aggregate. An aggregate is the most that a carrier will pay in any one coverage term. So while we hope you have 0 per occurrence limits, if you have more than 1 or 2, you have that full limit available for each claim that you might have. We have some non-monetary claims coverage that's injunctive relief. back in my early days of handling claims, the biggest claim we saw in that exposure was when people were coming about CAFOs and they didn't want hog farms near them. Today, that has really escalated into a wide variety of topics, from pipelines, drainage, all sorts of things. So, but those coverages, we have a standard $25,000 limit. You will have the opportunity to purchase more of that if you would like. We are seeing a lot of election claims that come in where they don't ask for any compensatory damages to kick us up to that full-on limit, but they want you to make a change or do something differently. And so we address those types of claims over there. We did quote, just kind of as a reference, a $1 million per occurrence. I would not recommend that, but I wanted you to see, just from a pricing standpoint, what that might look like. But I'm not recommending that. Your per occurrence limits are based on your view of what your risk is in your community, and then what defenses might be available to the county when going up against or defending those
Can I ask you
risks.
now why you wouldn't recommend that?
Lincoln County is a pretty big county. We got a lot of exposures here. This is getting to be a more litigious society, and so that 1 million just may not be enough. And when you think about it, you can go down the road, and if you have one home that is damaged in Lincoln County, there's quite a few over $1 million homes. We also, I can show you, I can get to you, I can't show you right now, what we cover 11 of the top 12 counties in the state. And, oh, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And most of them do not have the same exposures as Lincoln County does. So we think that 6 is probably a good number for you. If we thought you should go something differently based on what we see across other entities, we would have quoted those options for you. If you decide after talking with your state's attorney, hey, we want to see some other quotes for a little less coverage, we can do that. It takes not very much time at all. But to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, so when you do get your EMC quote, we've got the 6 for you, because that's what they're going to bring back to you. Okay, so we'll scroll through. This is just our cover letter. Hey, we want you to take a look at what we've got. We've got some benefits. Loss control surveys, risk control surveys, those are done every 3 years. So the county participates in the SDML Work Comp Fund, so it is going to look really similar to what you already do, just a little bit added time on the loss control program, a lot of focus on law enforcement, and then some of your regular third-party liability exposures, trip and falls, things like that. We have property valuation surveys, so if you did join the pool, within that first year, we would have our property vendor come out and go through the properties that are covered by the county and those that are owned by the county to make sure that you have what you want covered and that we have good values on what you do have covered. So the pool really does focus on being proactive rather than reactive. And we do that through our loss control resources. One of the biggest things is our employment practices and our government practices hotline. You have probably heard, I know Sherry has certainly heard about some of the elections training that we've been able to offer through the use of the hotlines. It started as the employment practices hotline, and that was, like you, finding some innovative solutions to issues that your communities are facing. We needed to come up with some innovative solutions to some concerns that our members had. Not every local attorney is versed in employment law, and we were seeing a lot of employment law claims, and while maybe they weren't always successful claims, they're very expensive to defend. So we're like, if we can give our members a resource or some tools that they can use that maybe helps them put them in a better position to help defend against these claims, it also positions the pool a little better, because we've got a good starting point to understand what's going on, did we follow all the proper policies and what have you. So the employment practices hotline was put into place when the pool administration came in-house about 10 years ago. About 5 years ago, we recognized that, it's not just employment law questions that some of our members need help with. So then we expanded that to be the government practices hotline, and that answers pretty much all the other questions. A lot of time has been used on the elections and stuff like that. during COVID, we were issuing tons of advice to members because we had elections that still needed to be run, but we had employees that we needed to protect. So how do you run an election when we're supposed to be closed down? How do we protect our employees when we need them to have access to the public and vice versa? So we were issuing bulletins and news blasts about, hey, this is what local council is finding. These are things that put together with public health, that here's some good ways, some good solutions for you to kind of get through this weird, trying time. So those two things honestly are my crown jewel. If I had to pick one thing to talk to you for the next however many hours about, that's what I would do. But I know you guys have a lot of business to get through, so we will move on. So I kept these notes in here for you so that, because we are not making decisions today, this is a good resource that you can go back to. Also, you have my information. You can call, email, text anytime if you've got any questions. We do have a quote in your packet for some enhanced crime. That enhanced crime coverage just offers, it's a replacement for bonds. It's a blanket policy, so it covers all your full-time, part-time employees, all of your elected and appointed officials. So basically, that's like your fiduciary responsibility, employee theft, kind of, so to speak. It is a $1 million limit with no deductible. So that's a pretty great deal. Usually, that comes at a fraction of even one bond for one of your specific employees. It doesn't cover notary bonds, so if you've got notaries, we'll still need to get those in place. And I'm sure Zach's already got those taken care of for you. So just to note, this is a pooled policy, so it has a standard calendar date renewal. It would not follow your traditional renewal date, but it's something that has really worked well for us in the past. Cyber liability, so this is something, cyber liability coverage is fantastic, it's great, but really, we want to get ahead of not even having to use cyber coverage. I know the legislature gave you a fantastic gift with the $7 million appropriation through Senate Bill 187. When those funds are available, absolutely take whatever steps you can to make sure that you're getting that help. Because the more defense you can have against cyber attacks and cybercrime, the better off you're going to be, because it's not just about getting your computer back after a ransomware attack. There is going to be, I tell you what, your human resource time, the lost sleep, the extra time they put into accommodating the investigations and stuff like that, that's going to be huge. So we are going to, we've got a quote, the cyber liability coverage is built into the general liability. Everybody gets it. But you will more often than not hear me talk about a proactive approach to cyber. Get training, reinforce to your employees, do not click the link, make a call before you make any changes, because that's going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars over what any crime coverage and cyber coverage can pay you. So getting back to the liability program, so again, we've quoted the $6 million per occurrence. These other sublimits are pretty standard. These are what we have for all members across the pool. Fire legal liability is if you lease space from somebody else and they say, hey, you're going to be responsible for a fire no matter what, even if you're negligent or not. There's some deductible information. These deductibles are quoted the same way as what you currently have. The only one that is probably different is, besides the non-monetary, is the employment-related claims. We have a $5,000 deductible. Every member has that. But if you call the hotline and follow advice of counsel, the employment practices hotline, then you will waive that deductible. So if you're going to fire Lynn Bren because she's a terrible employee and you're ready to be done with her, call the hotline, follow advice, and then if Lynn Bren were to sue you because she thought you made a bad choice, then your deductible is waived. And that's all stuff that when you do join the pool, we come back and we'll go through that with Sherry, or if you have somebody else who's appointed to be your coverage person, we'll go through that with Zach and that person as well, just so that they are fully aware of all of the things that they need to kind of put a tick mark in just in case. Law enforcement liability, we've quoted it with the $10,000 deductible. That's what you have. If you come on board with the pool, one of the biggest resources that we have for our law enforcement folks is access to what's called LLRMI, and that is a partnership with Jack Ryan. And he is a nationally known entity as far as law enforcement experts go. So his team puts together, they review, they are on top of all of our South Dakota laws, case laws that are coming down, and they watch and they have created for us sample policies and procedures, and then also training mechanisms that are specific for law enforcement folks in South Dakota. I have been told by some of our law enforcement friends that one of the best resources that they have from Jack's team is actually the media response and assistance on, okay, we had this big event, now how do we address the media? What do we tell them, giving them enough information, but not so much that it becomes a hindrance to either our investigation or to the community's health as a whole. So really impressed with the amount of work that Jack and his team do for us, and then also the resources that are available. We have actually been approached, we have only a couple counties that are not in the pool. We've been approached by their sheriffs to see if we could just write their department separately just for that access. Because to buy into that, it starts at 25 grand. So that is something that you would get just included with coming on board to the pool. So that in itself is an asset. So just some things, some highlights about what's excluded, what's covered. There are some of these things that are not automatically covered that we can add with an endorsement, and we can talk about those things if needed. Auto liability, so this is kind of your overview. We write auto liability differently than commercial insurance, so we just do by vehicle type. We don't necessarily require, if you have a vehicle you don't want comp and collision on, we don't need to know about it. We just have you added into the numbers. So that is that. Here's the overview for the crime coverage, gives you the breakdown, so you see all the limits and deductibles that you would enjoy. Similarly to the cyber, like I said, cyber is cyber. It's a $500,000 aggregate. It's a $100,000 deductible. But we really are going to focus with you guys, like we do with all members, on prevention, so we don't even have to have these types of claims, and we don't have to explore this coverage. Zach mentioned that the property market is getting harder. He's not wrong. We have convective storms. We get a lot of hail. We've had flooding in the last year, and actually the last 5 or 6 years. Hail and wind, though, has been probably the biggest challenge for all commercial carriers. I can tell you that as a pool, we have been what's called oversubscribed for the past couple of years, which means that we have more reinsurance carriers interested in overriding our program than we have capacity that we need filled, which is a absolute wonderful place to be, because that offers us the opportunity to then negotiate some pricing on behalf of our members, which again helps us to keep those costs lower. We do not have a separate wind hail deductible, and all of our property deductibles are per occurrence. So whatever deductible is the highest across any sections of property coverage, that's the one that applies. So if you have 15 buildings, 7 cars, 2 road graders, all in one loss, it's one deductible for that hailstorm or that windstorm. That gets to be pretty important because sometimes it's hard to be able to budget for a storm. When you don't know if you've got a percentage deductible or if you've got a per location deductible, how do you set aside funds for that? How do you anticipate what that loss is going to look like? So this is just one of the things that our board has been very cognizant of, and our internal staff, like, hey, we understand that there are some other things that maybe are in play here, but we have to make sure that we're looking out for what's best for our members. We have already started to look at some funding opportunities, so if we get to the point where we do have to require higher deductibles or a separate wind hail deductible, we're already looking at some options for offering members the opportunity to create their own deductible fund that they can pull from in those times of need. So we've been researching that, and that is something that is hopefully going to come into fruition here within the next year or so. We have various coverage evaluation options, and all of those are kind of discussed here because they'll be referenced on your schedule sheet. So I just wanted to make sure that you have that information. Something else to note, we don't have a co-insurance or a margin clause. So basically your values are your values. Everything we have is written so that if, as long as your coverage is, say, replacement cost, you have access to the blanket limit if that's completely destroyed. The blanket limit is always going to be the most that will be paid in any one occurrence, regardless of the number of locations involved. But what helps is if you have a location, say you have it covered for $1 million, but it costs 1.5 to rebuild if it's completely destroyed, you're not subject to that $1 million, and there's no co-insurance penalty. We don't come out and say, well, technically you should have had it for 1.2, so now we can't do that. We help you track that through our property valuation program. That's our solution to valuation management, as opposed to putting that back on agents or insureds by saying, okay, well, you have to make sure that values are correct, or there's a penalty or a clause and stuff like that. Equipment breakdown coverage, this is something that we have quoted for you. It's something that's on your standard coverage. This includes like your boiler inspections and things like that. The rest of this packet is a lot of your schedules. So all of the things that we got from Jensen Agency, all the things that you currently have covered. If you come on board to the pool, we will sit down and we will comb through this just to make sure that we do have everything that you want covered, and that those things that are covered are still things that you own. You would not be surprised how many times we've sat down and we're like, oh, we don't even own that anymore. Oh, no, that was surplus 3 years ago. Okay, that's cool, that's fine, we can get that taken care of. There is some retro coverage, and when Zach brings his information back, I've asked him to also quote some extended reporting, because you guys do have some claims made, which means that the coverage that was in place at the time the claim is made, not necessarily that the time that the claim occurred, is going to pick that up. So we have offered some quotes for retro coverage, which means that if a claim is made while you're in the pool, as long as you have retro coverage and the date that the incident occurred is within that look back time, then we can pick that up. And that's a one-time payment. But Zach is also going to come to you with a quote to give some extended reporting, which means that if a claim occurred historically during that EMC time, then you have some extended reporting time. So if they decide they want to make their claim after you come on board to the pool, then EMC would still be able to take a look at that. So those are two options, and I think it's important to consider those. And you don't have to do either. You can just be like, nope, we're going to start fresh and we're going to do what we're going to do. Would probably recommend looking at some retro coverage though. So this updated packet, this has the overall numbers, total contribution amounts, property, enhanced crime, all of that good stuff. The total contribution, we went ahead and talked to Safety Benefits, who again does the loss control program for the work comp fund. And they actually, it brings a little tear to my eye because I'm so proud when not only a community that I live in, but just public entities across South Dakota. Tracy said that Lincoln County truly is a leader in loss control and risk management. And that just made me so happy because with all the other things that you guys have to face, hearing that you take loss control and risk management so seriously and to heart, that was a huge win, and it just made me really proud of you guys. We've talked with Jensen Agency, and they've told us their commission that they'd like to see. Commission relationships are a straight pass-through. We don't have any set-up programs required, maximum, minimum, or anything like that. So the total dollar amount for coverage for your upcoming term is listed there. And then again, if you have any questions, you can certainly let me know. And I've got a little checklist for if you decide that you'd like to come on board, which that would be absolutely wonderful for me. But I would be available for any questions if you have them. I know today is just a discussion time, but do know that we would be absolutely thrilled to have Lincoln County come on board with the risk sharing pool.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Got a couple
By the
questions.
commission?
Sure.
Thank you for being here, by the way.
Yeah.
Pretty comprehensive report. First question I have is like when we get water intrusion into the building here.
Sure.
Does the pool make a distinction, do this whole thing about flooding or water damage that arises out of storms?
So-
Like a homeowner, insurance companies don't want to cover flooding,
Right.
but if it arises out of, a storm, well, then it's different.
Right.
What is the pool's take on that?
So we do have some flood coverage that is automatically included in our Section 2 property. We don't cover buildings that are partially or wholly in flood zones A or V, which I haven't looked at a map, but I think we're far enough from, we weren't far enough from the Big Sioux this past summer, but I don't think that there are many, if any, of your structures that maybe fall in there. So we would take a look at that map. But no, if there's a flood and water intrusion because of that flood, that comes in. Our flood definition, water damage is included in that flood form. So, and we do have some coverage built into the flood form. So there's, I think it's $25,000 limit for basically preservation of property. So sandbagging materials, employee time, stuff like that. We can get you help with those materials, even if there is no, we don't actually flood, but we think there's gonna be. So we've got some coverage for that. And then where there where our coverage isn't sufficient, or if we don't have coverage, we've worked with you guys, well, not you guys, but other members to get FEMA documentation that's needed to help get those funds more quickly back to you guys, so that you
No,
can
that's
get those
good. I
taken care of.
appreciate it, because we had, we had a bunch of water come down the street here and get into this building, so.
Sure.
Next question I had, you touched on it, I just wanted to drill down. One of the questions I have is, if we become a member of the pool, are there any policy changes we need to make as a result of joining the pool? Specifically, I think you mentioned with law enforcement. So the question I have is, sometimes you'll join the pool, and then the pool may come in and say, okay, we're looking at your list of policies here, and we love all these, but we don't like, 1, 5, and 7.
Sure.
Do you share ahead of time before we actually sign the contract with what policy recommendations you may have?
So the policy recommendations, that's all the stuff through LLRMI. That's all connected to loss control credits. You can say, nope, we don't want to do that. Given that Tracy said that you guys are leaders in loss control, and actually specifically to law enforcement, because we asked her about that, because could we give you the law enforcement introductory credit on top of the loss control? I feel like if there are policies that are in question, it is something that we're going to sit down and work through with you, and not say it's an absolute hard yes or no. I think you will find, and if you call any other members of the pool, we are not staunch, like, here's the line, do not cross it, or else. It's, hey, this is something that's happening, here's where we're coming from. We're interested to understand why it is what it is on your side. Is there some compromise? Sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't, but law enforcement policies, I really don't have a lot of concerns, again, because Tracy was so emphatic about how great you guys are. But if there is something that comes up, that's not going to be a coverage issue. It will be possibly a loss control, maybe a credit, a loss control credit issue. But I don't foresee it being an actual issue.
Last question I had was on the $6 million occurrence for these auto accidents. So what is the generally speaking, across the different municipalities and counties here in South Dakota, what are most of them sitting at per occurrence?
Sure. So auto is a little different, and if right now you have all the same, like you have 6 for auto, 6 for law enforcement, all of that. We can write a lower auto liability limit. I would say most of our members do whatever their general liability limit is. That's what their auto liability limit is. I would say our most popular limits are 1 and 3. We have a few at 5, a handful at 6, and we have one member that has $8 million in liability limits, but that's because they run a very, very large jail. And so they keep those limits a little higher because they have federal jail contracts and county jail contracts, and then their own city jail and stuff like that. So they have a much higher exposure with a lot bigger platform or portfolio of clients that they are serving.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's good. I mean, my experience is whenever a municipality or a county is in an accident, personal injury attorneys are like moths to the flame.
yeah,
There's no shortage of representation for
No.
people involved in accidents with the
Not at all.
government. So whether you're in Jones County or Lincoln County, there's going to be pretty vigorous litigation regardless. And so that's why I was just curious, like,
sure.
what those other counties or municipalities are at, especially in terms of what they're seeing out there in terms of settlements and things like that. So,
Yeah.
so that's good to know. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about settlements, and that's something else that the pool tries to pride themselves on, is the involvement of members in conversations like that. Before we settle a claim, before we deny a claim for liability, you're going to know. Or Sherry's going to know, or whoever your appointed person is, they're going to know. You guys are always going to have the opportunity to have the claims adjuster or myself come out and meet with you to talk about claims. That would be an executive session, of course, because it's matters in or potentially of litigation. But those are things that we want you to be involved in, because you have to answer to these folks at some point also. So absolutely, you have that opportunity to call on us. Your claims people come from Sioux Falls. I come from Harrisburg. I can be here within, well, today about 25 minutes, but normally about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, to talk about those things, those issues that you have. So being involved in that claims process, I think, is very important. I did work, actually, I did work for EMC in my Iowa days, but it's a different philosophy and a different mentality than what the commercial carriers have, so.
Can you, how long has the Alliance had the retro insurance coverage? Because they haven't always, have they?
So I think in the very, very beginning, they weren't in a position to be able to offer the retroactive coverage, but retro coverage has been in place for as long as I've been involved with the pool, so at least back to 2001. Typically, we only quote a couple years because based on the actuarial information trending and stuff like that, most claims should have developed within the first few years of occurring, and then there's also some statutory limitations to how things are filed and stuff like that. We can, if you want more than 2 years of a retro coverage, we can talk to reinsurance carriers and stuff like that about quoting some further back. Right now, out the chute, our underwriters are comfortable with 2. We have done 5 in the past. If that's something that is of interest, we can take a look at that.
Okay, I'd be interested in seeing that, I guess.
Okay, back to 5. Okay.
Any other questions? I think it was law enforcement liability you had down for about 6 million.
So all of your liability limits are 6 million per occurrence.
Okay.
Yep.
I know with everyone, having cameras, cell phones, et cetera, just wondering if that was appropriate number. No other questions? Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for all you do.
All right.
Thank you, Jack.
Moving on. I guess item number 4, Drew?
Morning again, Commissioners. Drew DeGroat from the Lincoln County State's Attorney's Office. This is requesting board action to rescind Resolution 2024-21. This was the resolution necessity for the purposes of the Lincoln County Justice Center access out there with the board's commitment to moving down the main access point down Northwest Avenue, seeking board action to rescind that resolution that was passed back in February 6th of 2024.
Okay, before we have a motion, is there any public input on this? If not, then I guess I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
second. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I had a motion by Aaron's and a second by Landine.
Yep, I'll second.
Any discussion? I guess not. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Poppins?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Gibbon?
Yes, motion carried. Item number 5.
All right. So on the item number 5, we're asking to adopt the provisional budget. But before we do that, I do have some additional changes.
And the budget must be completed by September 25th, correct?
By the 24th, yeah, by the last meeting of the month.
Last meeting.
So I can go through this again, and we can come back on September 24th, so you can see all the numbers in front of you. So with these changes that I've got here, Terry with the Highway Department has an employee that's 50% in weeds and 50% in the highway. He wants to move, well, he's got 2 employees, so he wants to leave 1 employee in the weeds and take the one that was half-time and move him back to the Highway Department to make his, so that's what all these numbers do here. Then on the bottom, in the airport, there were $36,000 budgeted for management fees, but we no longer have the management out there, so we need to take that out of the budget. And it would also decrease the cash transfer. With these changes, I have the A and B again. This would be the budget without the treasurer's employee at the satellite center. So it would move the cash applied down to $8,047,485. And this would be with those changes, with the satellite center, with the treasurer's employee, so it'd be $8,095,117, or $8 million, I'm sorry, $95,117. So, first I would probably need to have the motion for these changes, and again, a lot of it's just cleanup from what we have previously done, but since we're in the process, we need to do the motions for it.
Are you
And then-
asking for a motion at this particular time, or you have more explanation?
Nope, I'll do a motion for these at this time, and then we can decide how we're gonna move forward.
So moved, Mr. Chair, on that request for a motion.
I'll second it as
We-
well.
We have a motion by Schmidt and a second by Landine to make those changes to our provisional budget.
Okay,
Is there any public input on the matter? Okay, if not, I guess we have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion?
so I can attach these.
You want to vote?
Oh, sorry.
Vote.
No, I just assumed.
If there is no other discussion
Let's vote.
on the matter, I'll call the roll, Alicia.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes, motion carried.
Sherry, on the next with the treasurer, we're not actually approving moving forward with that project by putting it in the budget. It doesn't give any authority.
No, it doesn't.
On the
It-
project.
Nope, you just have the budget authority to do it if you decide to.
Thank you.
Good point, Commissioner Landine.
I guess
Okay.
I'd like to budget for it, just in case we do decide to move forward with it. Not sure yet if I'll support that, but
Right.
I think it makes sense to put it in the budget.
I would agree. It doesn't obligate the money, it just gives
It's
the
there.
ability. Now, I guess what you have to do is decide if you want to have the treasurer's office have an additional person or not have an additional person.
Additional what again, please?
An additional full-time employee for the satellite center. So the budgets would, this is, Commissioner Aaron's asked to have the budgets with the treasurer having an additional full-time employee and then not allowing the treasurer to have a full-time employee in '25.
You're right. I'm okay budgeting for it, but I have no idea, as I sit here, how I'm gonna vote on that when it comes time. I don't want anybody to think that we're authorizing that full-time employee. It's just a budgetary item. If we decide to move forward, then it's there.
I would concur with the idea of putting it in the budget. It's there. If the commission so decides to move on that, it is already in the budget. If they do not, well, it's an item that can be withdrawn, and it just won't be expended. So that's what budgets are supposed to be for. So I would support you on that, Commissioner Lang.
Any other commissioners have a comment on this matter? I guess putting it in the budget is probably the correct thing to do, even though we haven't agreed to do that.
I would just say as
Step
long as
yet
you have
to-
discussions with the department heads that are involved, that it doesn't proceed. I mean, it's a budgeted item, but it doesn't proceed without further approval, then I think
Yeah, but-
they're understanding to that.
But you budget these kind of activities so that you do have the resources there. That's what a budget is for. I mean, a budget isn't a rigid, doesn't have to be a rigid situation, but a budget has the accommodation of being, a little flexibility And you're right, you've got plenty of safeguards here. You've got commissions finally vote, you've got your department head has to vote, so why not have it in there?
Sherry, got a question for you. Just put the Harrisburg thing to the side, although it does involve that. Haven't we taken the position in the past that if the money is authorized to the department, as long as it's led by an elected official, they then have the authority to expend those funds as they see fit? Now, we're coming at this and we're flip-flopping, and we're saying, well, we're not really actually spending the money today. I mean, a few years ago, when there was so much commotion over the jail and all this other stuff, there was this huge push of saying, if the money has been budgeted, that's the authority. Because
So-
isn't there some kind of, isn't there some kind of resolution or a statute or something that actually we have to affirmatively undertake in order to authorize personnel?
Well, what I would, on that point, I would agree with you, is I would go ahead with, without the treasurer's full-time position, because yes, if you're authorizing an elected official, a full-time position, then it's there.
If it's in the budget, it's there. Well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so then I would say to look at the one without the treasurer's full-time position. And then you can come back and authorize and do a supplement to get her, as you have done many times for other
On the
departments.
24th, you mean then, or?
No. You can hold off on and putting the treasurer's position in there until March of next year. You might not have the construction done till July of next year. You can wait, as you've done for many departments, and approve a new hire mid-year.
But that's
Right.
not authorizing the actual satellite center.
Well, no, because it's much like when you put in the budget for the highway shop, and then you came in and said, no, we're not moving forward with it. I mean, because after all, the budget numbers that he's got, when you move forward, they might not be 62,000 next year, it might be 752,000.
Yeah, the
Right.
only reason Terry couldn't move forward with that is because he's not authorized to enter into contracts. When it involves an employee, there is
Right.
no contract.
Correct.
Okay.
So I would say if you're looking, then we would want to do this one. And that would take the treasurer's full-time employee out of it.
Okay, I can support that.
Just so I understand this, so we would take this out because we would, if we left it in, she would have the authority to hire somebody to put into a satellite center if the satellite center were approved by the commission. If the commission didn't approve the satellite center, then wouldn't that position become null and void as well?
No.
Not my understanding. My understanding is as soon as you authorize the budget for an elected official, then it's their budget and it's set.
But if it's in the budget for the satellite center, it's not to put another employee across the hallway. It
But
is just putting it.
I would just say, leave it out, because you
can
have gone through,
supplement.
you have gone through several departments and authorized a full-time
I got
employee
you, I
after the
understand
fact.
that, I understand. Just a moot point, but I'm saying if I authorize something for a specific position for something that the commission has to vote on, and the commission votes it down, then why doesn't that make that position null and void as well? And you just want to eliminate the position altogether.
The ability,
So if the
the
commission
ability for the
voted for the
position.
satellite center, all right, then the commission then has to enact FTE that would be a supplement to the budget.
Correct.
Yeah, Commissioner Schmidt, I understand what you're saying. The problem here is at the county level, we just pass a budget through an Excel spreadsheet. We don't attach all these policy writers to the bottom of it. So it's kind of six of one, half dozen of
And the other.
another. But as long as we're doing Excel spreadsheets that don't contain any policy writers on them, then we have to do it the first way.
So then that brings me back to, do you want me to go ahead and put all this in, put it into Encode, run it all and look at it? Is this enough to pass it? What do you want to do?
I can support doing it without the treasurer in there initially, without the extra employee.
Is that a motion?
No, I don't
Okay.
think we're making any motions,
You
are
could.
we?
You can.
I'll make that motion then. If you're looking for one.
Okay,
Because this one as presented has the changes that you've requested in there. Oh, wait. Yes, this one has the changes that you approved with this, and
okay.
then without the treasurer in there.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second for discussion so it can get to the floor
Okay,
here and we can.
we have a
talk.
motion by Landine and a second by Aaron's. Is there any public input on this matter before we move forward? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Aaron's. You wanted some discussion on this?
No, I'm just going to say, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to get it to the floor for discussion so we could move it on.
Okay,
I'm a fan of balanced budgets, so people know where I stand on these budgets, but I did want to get it on the floor so we can keep it moving.
okay, all right. Any other discussion by this commission?
So we're voting to not have that position in the budget,
Correct.
Correct,
and we're voting for all the other changes that you have
We already did.
outlined.
correct. It will be, and this will be republished because of the changes that we made, so it will be republished. If you're more comfortable, we can bring it back on the 24th after it's been republished.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
this is my thought on this matter. I believe that the satellite office is something that we should pursue. The opportunity is in front of us. Not adding that extra FTE, I think, kind of is trying to hide what we actually will probably and very likely need, according to the treasurer, to get this up and running. So if we don't have the support for that extra FTE, I don't know how the treasurer's office is going to function. So I would not support not having that FTE in there at this time in this budget. So thank you.
okay. Any other commissioners have a comment?
Well, the only thing, to be very honest with you, if you don't put it in, and for whatever reason, and their satellite center becomes reality, and then you have to vote on adding another employee, you know as well as I do that people don't want to vote to add employees. I mean, because that's not a popular item. It's a situation. So to me, I'm still stuck on the idea of having it in a budget. It's there. Provisional budgets are provisional budgets. And by the time we have to pass the final annual budget,
Well,
maybe
you-
we'll know a whole lot more
If you
about-
vote today, you'll be passing the annual budget.
We're passing the annual budget. This is the
2025.
one that Moses brought down from the mountain, right?
Or Sherry, yep.
Okay. Are we clear on what we're voting on?
Yeah, I don't think they heard.
A note caller.
Okay, if we're,
Everybody keep track how many lunches
Is that a constituent calling to
if
complain
we-
about your budget vote?
if we're clear on what we're voting on, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's?
No.
Poppins?
No.
Landine?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Oh, my God, no.
Gibbon?
Yes. What was it?
It's a fail.
3-2 that it failed. Okay.
What do you need, Sherry?
Okay, well, then we've got this budget. And this would include the treasurer's full-time employee.
To get it started, I'll offer motions for that.
Jim,
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Don't leave Schmidt.
I can't. Okay.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion by Poppins and a second by Aaron's.
I'm gonna say right now that this makes no sense to authorize that extra seat in the treasurer's office. We do not know how workflow is going to be. I mean, we can open a satellite center, and as we talked about at the last meeting, we don't know what that looks like. The cart is before the horse right now. They don't know, is it gonna take 4 people in Harrisburg if we do that? And then what's gonna happen down here? There has been absolutely nothing looked at about workflow and what it's gonna take for up there. So I think that's a part of a bigger discussion about whether we're going to do this or not. I think it's irresponsible to just go ahead and budget money for an extra employee, and then our treasurer has carte blanche whether or not to hire that extra employee, without us actually looking at if there is a need for it. And so I just think it's fiscally irresponsible, so I'm not going to support it.
Yeah, Commissioner Landine, my no vote is not attached to this treasurer's position either. I mean, I agree with most of your sentiment. I think overall, there's a lot of support for this satellite center. I think at this point in time, it's only half-baked. It's not fully conceived yet. And I think after more discussions and all of that, it will get figured out. But like a lot of things, there's that are brought to this commission here, it's just only half-baked at this point. It's not fully vetted. My no vote, just so the public knows, it's got nothing to do with this Harrisburg Center. It goes towards the entire structure of our budget and not being a balanced budget. So it's just, my no is not attached to this Harrisburg Center at all.
And I would agree with what you're saying about, it being your term half-baked, mine being it's the cart before the horse. I just don't think we're ready for this, and so that's why I can't support it today. But I am in favor of doing a satellite center. I just don't know what that looks like and what the needs are for that center at this point. I just don't think it's been fully developed.
Well, yeah, and I think, I agree with that. I think the other issue is, when it comes to adding full-time employees, what I want to see is some kind of analysis with regard to, we're servicing the same number of county citizens, just in a different location. So to me, it raises the question of why are we adding more people to service the same number of citizens at this time? Granted, our population is growing, but it's not so rapid that we need to immediately add the employee. Because in my mind here, all we're doing is we're rearranging deck chairs from the left side of the ship to the right side of the ship. There's still the same number of people on the ship. So there's no need to add more deck chairs. We're just rearranging the employees in this instance. And I want to see more conversation about, do we just need to, as we say in the military, rearrange our force posture? We don't necessarily need to recruit more troops. We just need to move them to different locations on the battlefield. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Maybe we have a different philosophy on what budgets are all about. But if you put this in, that's no guarantee that you have to spend anything.
She'll have the ability to spend it.
I understand that. But
Whether she needs it or not.
But she has not spent the money. She has not spent this thing. And Commissioner Aaron's makes a very valid point. I would say I would agree with that. So I think we're on a situation where we have a different attitude or a different philosophy on this thing. I can support this thing because I don't think we're not going to expend the money, and I don't think our treasurer is going to go out unless we have a satellite center. And if you don't have a satellite center, you don't have the employee. So that's where I am.
Any other discussion?
I guess our role, that is our role, is to monitor the budget and control the budget. And so that is our authority over the treasurer's office, is our budgetary power. And so I'm not going to support it at this time. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to support a supplement in the future. I'm just not ready to do that today.
Commissioner Poppins, I know you have
Mr.
comment?
Chair and audience and those listening, my yes vote on this is that I'm 100% in favor of starting the satellite office. I am not guaranteeing this is going to work. I think it's an opportunity that we've talked about for many, many years, and the opportunity in front of us right now is a very good opportunity that the municipality of Harrisburg is providing for us, and not to try to capitalize on that right now, I think would be foolish for those sitting in these chairs not to take that opportunity when our mission is to try to serve the masses of our population that reside in our county the best of our ability. If we want to strictly look at only the most cost-effective efficiency, we do not open a satellite office. We keep one office, everyone comes to that office, and that's the way. I believe that our role is to better serve the public, within reason, and I do believe that this is with reason, and for us not to have, as our treasurer has indicated, the necessity to add an FTE, I think only undermines the ability to serve the public to the best of our ability. So I stand firm on supporting that the FTE gets added. If we're going to do a satellite office, if the decision is not to do the satellite office, then we remove all those aspects of it and move forward on that way. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, again, I'll ask for public input.
Scott Montgomery, Fairview, South Dakota. I think you're giving her permission to do whatever she wants with her money, and I think that's a mistake. I mean, if we don't want her spending the money, don't give her the money. If she needs an employee later on, give her the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input? Okay, I guess we're ready to vote. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
No.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine,
No,
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
I'm going to say no. Motion failed. Okay,
Well, we gotta help, can't leave our treasure hanging here.
You have time.
So what changes do you want to see in next week's?
You know, I want to move, you got to move this forward. We have a difference of opinion on a budget item here.
well, it seems like, right, I mean, I agree with you. So Commissioner Gibbon kind of shifted his vote, so,
I mean, I can go along, you guys. I want to move this forward. I think that Commissioner Poppins makes a valid point. We've talked about a satellite center with a growing situation. Although we know, honestly, you guys, we know that once you open this center in Harrisburg, if it works out, that the volume there will steadily increase. And it is going to change the balance of number of taxpayers that come down here to pay taxes as opposed to there. So I would agree that we better sit down and really put our nose to the grindstone and really do some hard evaluation and projections as to what kind of shift will happen in the tax-paying public that would go to a center in Harrisburg or would come to Canton. And then we better have this. And Commissioner Landine, to your point, you do make good sense. We are a little ahead. And in some ways, we're a ready, fire, aim situation as to really dialoguing this thing back. So I can go back and I will support your idea of taking that position out so we can get Sherry and our auditor to move forward. And I would make a motion to that effect.
and then that would be on my original motion, which was to do,
Your original motion.
which was just without the treasurer's
Yep.
employee.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I will second that.
okay, we have a motion by Schmidt and a second by Landine. Is there, I guess, any public, excuse me, is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my question is, does anybody remember if the treasurer gave us an indication that she would be able to run an office? Because just by the fact that we put it in our budget that we're going to open an office, by no means does it mandate that she has to operate in that office. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, because, again, she indicated she was going to need an FTE to run an office, so.
No, you're right, you're right on that, 100%.
Again, I just,
I think a
again,
deep
want to make
dive
sure
needs to be made done.
100% for it, so.
Go ahead, Commissioner Poppins.
I just want to make sure that we're in it 100% and for whatever we need to do. And it was indicated to us by the treasurer that she would need an FTE unless I heard something wrong, so.
What was
No.
So there was some follow-up email discussion on this issue, Commissioner. Because I think last week we were talking about this and I asked Franny a couple questions and Franny basically
You want me to
said she
get
would need
Franny?
one.
I'm going to get Franny because
Yeah.
it'll be easier.
And then what happened, Commissioner, is there was some after-the-fact email traffic from Sherry along with our budget attachments. And a comment was made suggesting that, yes, it would just be one FTE, but she would be restationing more than one employee up there. So, and I think this is the overall larger point is we don't know what the plans are. We just don't know what Franny is gonna do. I don't know if, and this is no offense to Franny, I don't know if Franny knows what she's gonna do yet. And because it requires her to put some plans together and then brief us on it, and that just hasn't happened yet. So maybe she's still thinking through that, so.
Mr.
I know I probably shifted position because I thought you made very good points, Commissioner Landine. And, I don't know. I'm still struggling with the fact, wasn't it 126,000 for remodeling and
Oh, see,
getting
there
this
were two
thing going?
different-
I mean,
two different plans.
again, that's
Commissioner
100.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, John Rombo clarified for me that there's two options for remodeling. The one is the 48,000 and the other is like 62.5. It's not both.
Okay.
It's one or the other, but it's not both. So it's not 126,000, it's 48 or 65 or something.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Franny,
That's the increased cost.
we had some questions, I guess, for you.
Okay.
So, Commissioners, would you like to ask your question?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
the discussion that we're having, Madam Treasurer, is that the satellite office in Harrisburg, you have partial to full support for that office getting open. The debate is whether or not to put the FTE in the budget for next year for that. My stance, and which has been, I think, discussed, is I want to make sure that you are fully supported in getting that office up and running, which if you needed that FTE, I want to make sure that's in the budget. There has been discussion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam, or Member Commissioners, is whether or not we need to do that today, or if that is, do you think there is a possibility that you could run that office without an FTE to get started, so.
I mean, if I had to, I could. It would put a lot of strain, I think, on my office here, because it would bring us down to 4 people here. And that would mean basically 2 people at the windows and 1 person doing the phone and mails. So if we are busier here with that stuff, it would put a strain down here.
Is your office strained right now?
Not now, not full-time. I mean, during the tax season times, we are a lot busier, but we are sitting pretty good right now.
So your predecessor, I know we had some issues with getting things reconciled and what have you. I mean, how is that going in your office? Have things improved there?
Yes, and actually the bank, are you talking about like the bank recon stuff?
Yeah, I just,
Yep.
I don't want to add to your responsibilities if what you're already doing is, if you're overstressed over there right now with what you have. I don't know the answer to that.
So with the new finance officer in the auditor's office, she has actually taken big recon back. She just took that back, so that has freed up some of my time. So I am able to kind of go up front and help when we are
Okay.
busier.
All right.
Franny, I think you and your office, aside from this discussion, you guys have done a really good job of coming into a difficult situation. You cleaned it up, you got the money invested, that was otherwise sitting on the sidelines, which was a policy shift from your predecessor. And I think you got a lot of things cleaned up. So I appreciate the job you've been doing on that.
Thank you.
That's a little bit of sugar. I'll give you a little bit of salt now. I kind of disagree. I mean, I probably need to take into consideration heavily your stance on this. At first, I think there's going to be some pain in your office because the public won't catch on that there's a satellite center, assuming there would be. So there's going to be some strain and there's going to be some lines down here. But then my gut just tells me overall that once the word gets out that you can drive 10 minutes to Harrisburg instead of 30 minutes down to Canton here, that place will be busier than what this is down here. That's a totally uninformed guess. And So I put a lot of credence into this concept of we're not taking care of more citizens, we're just taking care of them in a different location. At the same time, though, I'm understanding what you're saying, because you take a person out of the mix, and then that means you gotta redo all the schedules and maybe different lunch times and all that kind of stuff. So I get that part too. And I think there just is more probably, the cake needs to bake in the oven longer on this deal, where we try to figure it out more, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I feel like some of it has been rushed. I don't know how busy that satellite office would be. If we get that out there to the public, I think it will be busy really fast right away. I think some people will probably hear about that and maybe come down here because they don't want to wait in a long line up there. But
Do you think like there's a way that you could somehow figure that out? I mean, could there be some, could you talk to the media perhaps and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Maybe we have a survey on our website to get a gauge of how many people are going to be actually using this place. Like, I just feel like we're going into it eyes wide shut right now. And I'm just hesitant about throwing all our eggs in when we don't really know what we're going to have.
Right.
You know, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I was sitting in the audience right now, I would say, good God, what do you guys, we got a great idea. We know that a satellite center is something that would enhance the service to the public. But we haven't put down in a detailed report, like what the site is, if that's the options, what the cost would be, what the projections are. Commissioner Landine, you got a great idea. These are all the fundamental things that we could put in a report and lay in front of the commission saying, this is what a satellite center, where it is, what it would cost, projections, how many it would serve, how many days it would be open, what the rent possibly would be, what long-term lease would we have. All of these questions or boxes should be checked prior to our voting on this thing. So we had a motion here to get the budget, but we got in the satellite pretty deep here. So what I'm going to propose, Mr. Chair, is I'd be happy to be one commissioner that would work with our treasurer, with our auditor, and with our IT person to find out what kind of obligations we have there, to come back with a comprehensive report, lay that in front of the commission, and then finally decide on whether to move forward or not.
Mr. Chairman, I'll volunteer to be the second. Commissioner Schmidt, though, if you avert your gaze to the left there, right there is the numbers. It's right there. It was emailed all out to us. I will say this, my jaw dropped when I saw some of those numbers. Video cameras and security and furniture. I mean, I was in some courthouse last week where they're using furniture from the 1950s. And, it doesn't look the best, but these things are expensive. And I just was a little surprised by the cost of setting up a new office. And I think that's just the way America's going right now with inflation and the cost of goods. Everything's more expensive.
Well, thank you. We do have a motion, though, in a second.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Or
You
are we
do.
rescinding those, or are we moving forward with those?
No, I made the motion to adopt what Commissioner Landine originally had made, and we turned it down, so we resurfaced this with a new motion, which is identical, and not putting the FTE in the budget.
Okay. Now, is there any more discussion amongst the commissioners? Was there any other public input?
Scott Montgomery, Fairview, South Dakota. I think we back up a ways. This is where we end up because we didn't involve the public in where we're going to put the courthouse. I mean, you guys made this decision to put it out here. The hell with the north end of the county. And all of a sudden, we're going to worry about the north end of the county. let them drive down here. This is where the courthouse is gonna be, this is where the courthouse is. If they don't like it, they should have been involved, but you guys didn't allow that. I mean, so, I think we're crazy. When's it gonna be the auditor's office? When's it gonna be the register of deeds? When's it going to be the commissioners? This is where the county seat is. If we wanted to change it, we should have changed it before we ever started building this courthouse. So, let the people north drive down here. This is where it's at. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Yes.
Yeah, Gary Schultz, 1015 East Second in Canton. I agree with what Scott just said. I'm not that concerned about people that have to drive down here once a year to pay their taxes. Those of us who live in Canton drive to Sioux Falls 3 times a week. So I realize you want to service the people that live in this county, but this is the county seat, and this is where the offices are, and I agree with Scott. I don't agree with the satellite office, and I know that that's probably a done deal in most of you people's opinions, but I feel this is the county seat, this is where the offices should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other input? Okay,
Call the question.
call the question and go ahead. Everybody know what they're voting on now? Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner Aaron's,
No.
Poppins,
No.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. Okay.
Sherry, you can move on.
So Sherry, you should be able to come back next, when we vote on this at our next meeting, and there should be no changes, correct?
Okay, so I thought you just voted to pass the budget.
Okay, okay. All right, I didn't know for this,
We'll move the provisional budget to the adopted budget for 2025
Okay.
with that motion you just did.
gotcha. All right, that answers that. Thank you.
All right, that being our last business, I guess we'll go ahead and get public comment on items that are not on the agenda for today. Seeing none, I'll go ahead then and go with commissioners' reports.
Mr. Chair, last week there was a meeting on this interchange, 85th Street interchange, for public information. Everything is in place. They'll be putting out bids here, some bids this fall, and some bids will be in the spring. So what if you start driving up Interstate 29, you will see dirt being moved on both sides of the highway as they begin to lay the preparation for that interchange, which, you already see some of that activity going on. But anyway, that's moving ahead. So,
Yeah, thanks, that's exciting. Any other commissioners?
Just a quick report on the airport. Progress has begun and is advancing quite nicely on the south ramp. So far as have heard, there has not necessarily been any hiccups, so things are
Yeah.
moving well. So
Okay,
And I'll say, on the new courthouse, I haven't been out there in the last couple of days, but the geo piers were starting, and they were starting to do those, so that was the plan anyway, but, so that's all on track.
okay, very good. No other commissioner report. Do we have any executive session, Drew? No executive session.
To adjourn.
All right.
Second.
I have a motion by Poppins, a second by Aaron's to adjourn. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Yes.
Poppins, Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
yes.
Gibbon.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you.